Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WBENC, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslins. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book, Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to Women Who Own It podcast, brought to you by WBENC, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses. I am your host, Allison Maslin. I'm the CEO and founder of Pinnacle Global Network, where we work with business owners all over the world to help them grow and scale their companies. And so Women Who Own It is an amazing podcast brought to you by women business leaders for women business leaders. And we're here to make the road easier for you in your journey of being an entrepreneur. We bring the most amazing guests here that share their wisdom and inspiration. And today, we are doing just that. So Janet Sperry founded Dakota Matting in 2018 with the goal of creating a unique, hands-on turnkey access provider for the energy industry. Dakota is a comprehensive matting supplier with the most experience and knowledgeable professionals who create the most comprehensive access plans seen in the industry. And we're going to talk about, for those of you that are going, what is the matting industry? It's so fascinating. In addition, Dakota brings the latest matting technology that better assures safety and also decreases environmental impact. She brings an extensive leadership and business background to the table. Janet understands the importance of earning one's trust, delivering on service, and building long-term relationships. And we're going to dive into that as well. Her many years of experience as an oncology physician taught her the values of clear communication, transparency, and utmost dependability. She built Dakota on the premise that handshakes matter, honesty is given, and the reputation is all that you have. So without further ado, Janet, welcome to Women Who Own It.
Thank you, Allison, for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, and in learning more about you, I'm like, this story is so fascinating. So I couldn't wait to interview you. Now, before starting Dakota, you were a radiation oncologist. So, wow, that is quite a shift to the matting industry and out in the field. What led you to leave oncology and start this business?
Well, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, and I always envisioned that I would one day create a business outside of the medical field. Of course, I loved being a physician. That was something that I had planned on since I was a young girl. But throughout time, I always had that itch, that entrepreneurial itch to start something different, to create a company really from the ground up, and to do something completely outside of medicine. And so Brent Davidson, who is my business partner at Dakota Matting, has been a longtime friend, and he's been in the matting industry his entire career. And for many years, we talked about going into business together. He saw that there was a unique opportunity for a new company to come along and to enter the matting industry with a very different approach. So we decided to start Dakota Matting in 2018.
That's awesome. I was like, I couldn't quite, my brain figure out how you went from one to the other, but that totally makes sense. And then can you just explain to our listeners a little bit about what matting is and how it supports our energy industry and us as individuals on a daily basis?
Sure. It's a really, not a well-known industry, but it actually really is critical to support our infrastructure and our power grid. So what mats are these very large, heavy-duty industrial mats that are either made out of wood or timber or composites or plastics. And these large mats are then laid down on the ground to create a temporary road in order for trucks, vehicles, cranes, and other heavy equipment to drive on to gain access out to power lines, or where the utilities need to replace, upgrade, or maintain their power lines. And we also service the oil and gas industries, where we need to create roads for them to access and construct their pipelines.
I see, but you have a unique innovation, right, that really protects the environment, because the traditional mats would often destroy the, all of the trees and things like that. So
Exactly.
I was fascinated by that.
You may not think about it, but something as simple as just a wooden mat laid down on the ground can have long-lasting permanent effects on the environment. So when you lay mats down in especially a wetland or environmentally protected area, there's a really fragile ecosystem where everything has to be in balance. So when you compress the ground, you actually affect the soil, the nutrients in the soil, the root system underneath. And then if there's heavy rain, flooding, all of that pollution can be carried over to the adjacent rivers and creeks, and of course, eventually into our ocean. So it's really important for something as simple as a temporary road that we're aware of the environment that we're in. And even the mats themselves, when you take a piece of oak or any type of hardwood and you introduce it to a new ecosystem, you can actually introduce invasive species. So it's really important anytime you lay down anything that you leave the environment in the setting that you came into.
Yeah, I thought that, these aren't things that you think about, but it really does make an impact, even to the wildlife as well.
Right.
Now, you say that you've built Dakota on the premise that handshakes matter, honesty is a given, and reputation is all you have. And I love that. I think that's kind of old school, but that's how I operate as well. Now, how have these values served you in your business growth, and what advice could you give around that?
Definitely. That was like the belief statement or motto that I came up with Dakota. When we decided to create Dakota, we talked about having a different company enter the industry. We really understood the importance of the handshake. For us, the handshake is not just an introduction. It's the very beginning of a trusted, hopefully long-term business relationship. And I believe that integrity and honesty are core values that any business has to have in order to be successful. Customers need to know that they're working with not only the most knowledgeable or skilled professionals who can execute the job at hand, but are working with folks whom they can actually trust and rely on time and time again. So, and with that, we realize that reputation is really important. As with any business, that one important parameter for growth and success is word of mouth or referrals. So reputation to us is really important. And this is such a niche industry that for us, every single reputation, every single customer counts.
Yeah, I love that. And I do agree. And, we go by the premise that do what we say we're going to do. Like, that's going to happen. And that really can give the customer peace of mind. And you don't see that as often as we need to in the business world. So I think that's just so important to highlight for those of you that are listening. Now, what are your top 3 tips that you could think of off the top of your head for business owners who want to be more people focused in their business?
Well, I think as business owners, we're really good at knowing our product or service. So I would say focus on, again, the customer first approach. I would say number 1, really know your customer. Do your research, do your homework, know their history, where they came from, where they're going, what they've done so far. Number 2, really kind of understand their needs. Don't give them a sales pitch. Don't do all the talking. Really listen to the customer, critically ask questions, see how your product or solution can best fit their individual needs. And then I would say, thirdly, know their heartburn, their heartache. What keeps them up at night? What makes them worry? What's gone wrong before? What other bad experiences have they had? So if you really know your customer, know what they need, and know what they don't need or what their heartburn is, you can best serve your customer.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Thank you for that. I do feel like sometimes business owners can miss the mark because they're not really diving into what the pain is, what didn't work before. And that's really where the need is. So that's just so smart.
Your goal is how to make their life easier, how to make their job easier or better or safer. So I think if you always think about where the customer is coming from and you really understand your customer, then you're going to be successful.
Yeah, fantastic. And, every business has its ups and downs. That's just part of the journey, part of that entrepreneurial roller coaster.
For sure.
And I'm sure you've had those moments. What have been some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome since stepping into the business world?
For me is to enter a new industry or change career paths, right? And to start at the bottom on the ground up, build something that did not exist 3 years ago. So I think it's constant learning and education. I wish I had more time to read, but I constantly try to educate myself and to know as much as I can about the industry to keep up with the latest news. So I think it's constant reading and keeping up to date.
Yeah, I think that that's the thing I love the most, because I feel like as a human being, we're supposed to evolve and learn. And I think as business owners, sometimes we can get so sucked into the day-to-day of the business that, we can flatline. And so always evolving and growing, I think, is pivotal.
I think your goal as a business owner is that you must learn one new thing a day or one new thing a week, right? If you're just on autopilot, you're plateauing and you haven't challenged yourself or learned something new that week, then you're not growing or advancing. So I think you have to make sure, whether that's even formally keeping, a journal, whatever it is, that you have to make sure you're actually growing and your knowledge is advancing.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if those of you that are listening, that you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm bored in my business, or I just feel like I am on autopilot. I think stretching your brain can be inspiring and give you that extra oomph that you need, that's missing.
Yes.
And so what have been some of the most successful strategies to become really one of the fastest growing companies in your industry in a very short time?
I would say it sounds very simple, but it's true. We've talked about it earlier. Just lead always with a customer first approach. And I know that some business advisors or leaders may disagree. You have to think about your company and put yourself first. Sometimes it's okay to be selfish, but I think you can never lose if you're always putting the customer first. So that I would say, number one, customer first mentality, and that has to permeate throughout your company and your culture. And then two, you hire folks with the same mindset, right? That the customer always comes first, the customer is always right. And then you hire the best. Everybody wants to hire the best in the industry, the brightest, the most knowledgeable, the most skilled, or most experienced. But you also got to get people who are truly, truly passionate in serving the customer, right? It's not a job for them, it's a passion. And then how do you hire the best? I think here at Dakota, we've been able to hire some of the best and recruit some of the best in the industry because we create a really positive work culture where you create such a rewarding work culture for the employees to flourish, be successful, feel like it's their own business, it's their customer, it's their relationships. And that I would have to say is, in a nutshell, how we got to where we are today. We just put the customer first, hire folks who think the same way, and hire the best folks by treating them well and creating a really rewarding, work environment.
As women business leaders, we are the drivers, we're the multitaskers, we're the caretakers, we're taking care of everybody else besides ourselves. You're on a mission, you have big goals, right? And sometimes it feels like you're running a race. I get it. But if you don't take care of you, you're going to burn out. And we've all been there, right? And it is not fun. So what I have learned before I get to that line of feeling tired and burned out is that I've learned to put self-care into my schedule, just like my meetings and other commitments and things that I have and goals in my business too. So make those doctor's appointments that you haven't made in a while. Make the self-care appointments. Take time at the spa. Get a massage. Like literally schedule these things into your calendar. You may think that you don't have time, but when you give yourself self-care, get enough sleep, drink enough water, really take care of your health and your energy, you're going to be so much more inspired. You're going to enjoy what you do so much more. And then you have something left to give others. So that is my scaling tip for you today, because it's not just about scaling your business, but it's also about scaling your health and you. That is fantastic advice. Thank you for that. I do feel that it is, if you want your company to go to the Super Bowl, you need to have A players, but it really is that heart, that connection to your values and your vision and all of that. I think that's especially in the climate that we have today, where people are saying it's so hard to find people. But with a business like yours and the culture that you've developed, who wouldn't in that industry want to be a part of that, because you spend so much time of your day, of your life really in your work.
And your best recruiters are your employees. So when you've got the best and they're happy, they go all and tell their colleagues and coworkers and friends, you've got to come to Dakota. So, again, it goes back to reputation, word of mouth. It happens not only externally with the customer, but internally with our own employees. Yeah,
I see how that goes full circle. Now, Dakota Matting was named the WBENC Pitch winner of the Innovative Solutions category in 2020. And for your MTech Wetland Access System. Now, that was amongst 200 applicants and 4 rounds of live pitches. Wow, that's pretty heavy competition there. And you won. That's amazing. First of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What was your biggest lesson you learned during that experience, and any advice that you would give to other business owners who are considering these pitch competitions?
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. It's gotten us a lot of attention. I would have to say that honestly, I applied on a whim. I didn't think that, we had any chance of making it, especially nobody understands what matting is or understands our business or industry. But once I committed, I would tell other women who are considering a pitch competition, just general advice, put yourself out there, like do not hold back. Show your passion. You started your own business for a reason. Let us know what that reason is. And it's okay to get personal. In terms of specific advice for a pitch competition, I would say you have to rehearse. Record yourself if you can and watch yourself. Definitely practice in front of other people for feedback, because when you're pitching, you're familiar with your product or service, but with a new set of ears, they may not follow what you're describing. So definitely practice in front of others. And then you definitely have to make sure you hit all of the scoring criteria. Like, no matter how well you sound, if you don't hit the judges' marks, you're not going to win. And then I'd say lastly, please time yourself, right? There's nothing worse than running out of time, being cut off when you have not yet completed your pitch. And that happened to a couple of folks during the competition. It was a really short amount of time, and you can easily run out of time. So I would definitely say rehearse, practice in front of an audience, and definitely time yourself.
Yeah, I watched your pitch, Janet, and I have to say it really drew me in. And this was an industry I didn't know much about. And I thought, like, you really got what you do and what sets you apart. Like, it was fascinating. And you could tell you practice. You nailed it on the nose on your time. So congratulations on that. I do a lot of speaking and a lot of events, and I know some of those that are listening too. And people always ask me, how did you get so comfortable with that? I used to be terrified, but it was just doing it so many times that it became second nature. So, and what keeps you inspired in your business on a daily basis? And then, resilient when like something hits the wall or you go through some tough times that we all go through.
I think, again, it just starts with your passion, right? And serving the customers, no matter what business you're in. All of us, we are in the service industry. We are helping someone. We are bettering someone's life. We're creating a product or service that benefits someone. So getting down to why you started this business. So when things are really tough and you hit a bunch of roadblocks, just remember why you first sat there and decided, I want to start this business, and just get back to being passionate. And then look at your customers. When they're happy, you feel fulfilled and satisfied. So I think part of the resilience, there are days that are bad days and headaches, and I'm sure everybody questions themselves why they've gotten into a certain business or not, but just remember why you first decided to start this business. And if you're doing what you're passionate about, you're going to be resilient regardless of the situation.
Yeah, really, really good advice. And I'm sure you brought a lot of that giftedness, in working in oncology with patients that were going through difficult times, to, navigate in your own world, and, helping your customers too, because that's very, very much, taking care of the customer was obviously super important in that field too.
Absolutely.
So any advice for women-owned businesses or business owners or women business leaders in a male-dominated field?
Sure. I mean, I think, I would tell women, be aware of your gender, but don't think about your gender. We all know that our gender can affect perceptions, influence interactions with people. And we know overall it can be a factor in the business world. But I think as long as you focus on why you are the best, or your product or service or company is the best, you're going to be successful. I'm sure that there are women here that can all tell stories of a particular interaction or setting where they think that their gender may have influenced or impacted an outcome. I would say, okay, be aware of it, acknowledge it, and then find a way to overcome it. Don't let it weigh you down. We all have had, like I said, I'm sure you have too, had stories that we could tell where we feel upset or frustrated that we weren't given the same opportunity, or we were viewed differently. So I would say be aware of it, but don't focus on it. Focus on why you're good. And then secondly, being a woman, I would say, don't be afraid to just be yourself. And if you are a woman, you can be woman-like. I think that we get afraid of being stereotyped or labeled as emotional if we get upset if something were to go wrong in the business. And a male CEO can be upset, raise his voice, and we're labeled as emotional or hysterical. And I think we're worried about being labeled sensitive if we show compassion or empathy. I said, don't worry about those labels. Just be yourself. You can't go wrong with that. There's no need to mask your femininity if you are feminine. And there is a reason why you're a leader in your business today, and focus on that and just be yourself. So we know gender could be a factor, but don't let that influence you. And if you feel you weren't given an opportunity to speak up, voice an opinion, have a promotion, then go and overcome it, and find a way to get there. But I wouldn't focus on, I to be honest, and the way we run Dakota, I am, I embrace that I'm a woman leader, but I don't think about it in the way I run the business.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you 100%. That's really how I feel. Honestly, I rarely think about it. I mean, sometimes I'm in places where I'm the only woman. I'm sure you are too in your field. And I, personally feel like it's an advantage. So that's the way I choose to look at it.
You're right about that. I think all the studies actually show women leaders, are stronger in many, facets as a leader. So there are strengths, and that is something to embrace.
Yes. Yes. Now, speaking of leading and being a leader, learning how to lead a team can be challenging, particularly letting go, or letting go of an employee. That's like my least favorite thing to do, and letting employees learn from their own mistakes. Can you share about any mistakes or challenges you've had while learning to grow and lead a team, and what you've learned from that experience?
Sure. I would say that, one of the mistakes that I probably made early on in the company is not creating accountability. I really wanted to create this culture of independence, self-reliance, self-motivated employees. And I really wanted to avoid any micromanagement or corporate-like feel. However, I realized that sometimes when you have too loose of an organization, that leads to, disorganization, inefficiencies, mistakes. So with time, I learned that I did need to implement some structure, create some accountability. And when we did, not only were, the employees more successful, which was important for the company's success, but for their own personal success. And the employees were happier because in the end of the day, nobody wants to be unsuccessful. So you're a leader, you created this company, you're successful for a reason. It is your role or responsibility to help create structure, to help create accountability, to ensure that not only your company is successful, but your individual employees attain their own personal milestones or successes. So I think early on there was too much looseness and not enough accountability, and that was a mistake. And that's something that I realized accountability can be a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And I'm sure the way that you presented it sounds like you have a really positive culture, but I think in general, we all want goals too. We want to have some direction of where we're going. And then when you do achieve those goals, you have a sense of accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Now, we're obviously here because of WBENC, and that's how we're brought together. And WBENC is, who has brought this amazing podcast to life, Women Who Own It. How have you utilized your WBENC certification as a support for your own business growth?
WBENC has been phenomenal for us. The certification itself, absolutely helpful when we're working with businesses and corporations who want to promote equity and inclusion and who want to support women-owned businesses. Beyond the certification, all of these events that you just named, speaking with you today, I think all of the WBENC conferences, networking events, forums, workshops have introduced me to other women-owned businesses and definitely to the large corporations and companies who are looking to work with women-owned businesses. So I do encourage any women who are listening and thinking about getting their certification. It has been extremely helpful for us, and I've met so many customers and partners and develop relationships with other women-owned businesses through WBENC. So they do a phenomenal job. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here today, but they genuinely are a really well-run organization. And I'm really impressed with some of the events that they put together.
I agree. I can't wait till we all get back together again, but just even through the pandemic, WBENC has been so supportive with all the different classes that they've offered and the opportunities for networking. I just am really proud to be certified through this organization. Right. So, well, this has been awesome, Janet. Thank you for being with us today. And I'm excited for everybody to learn about what you do and how amazing you are as a business owner. What are you excited about in the future in, what may be approaching for you in your business?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me today. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and we're just excited for what's to come. We want to keep growing. We want to keep serving, the utility companies and help building and repairing the infrastructure while protecting the environment. Like you said, I think it's important that all large companies have some goal to reduce environmental impact, and definitely working in the energy industry, as you can imagine. We all have some goal by 2030 or 2040 to reduce our carbon footprint. So it's a really exciting time for us. And I'm really happy to be here and have some positive impact, on what we're doing.
Well, you definitely do. You're making a big difference. So happy that you took the leap into the entrepreneurial world, and you're doing a fantastic job. So thank you for being part of Women Who Own It. And until next time, if you loved this episode, please write a review. We would love that. Go ahead and subscribe and share this with the other businesswomen that you know. And until next time, get out there and elevate yourself because you are worth it. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.